Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, here in Week 7. We've got Thursday Night Football coming up here in just a few days. We just got done, it seems like, with our last watch party here, Ponzi, and now we're knocking on the door of another one here in just a few days here. But today, we've got the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers for you to talk about today. First up here, we're going to be talking about some analysis from people that I do trust in the NFL media space, talking about the Steelers offense and some good points being made out there right now in NFL media about this Steelers offense and why this is a pretty decent group that does have a sustainable model for success this season. Then we'll get into our second segment of the day, which is the latest Steelers trade buzz. There is a new article out today with a very interesting trade package that would land A.J. Brown, the superstar wide receiver, here in Pittsburgh and reunite him with DK Metcalf here in the Steel City. So we'll get into those trade rumors later in the show. We'll get into the latest news and rumors here in just a moment. But first, I want to see who's in this chat room right now, man. We've got how many people watching live right now? We got over 200 people already watching live. So let me know down there in the comment section in the live chat. Spam me if you've already liked the stream today. The real ones know what to do, man. Clicking that thumbs up icon helps out the stream. It helps tell the YouTube algorithm that Steelers fans are enjoying this content, that they should push this out to other Steelers fans so we can get as many people in this chat room as possible. So shout out to Zara Craig, Daryl Oglesby, Voxy. We've got my lovely fiance Cassie Voth here. Steelers dad is here. Colton is here. We got Mr. Moblin. We've got Isaac, Tristan. We've got Isaac Flam Flam. We've got Fluffy here. We got Keith. We got Troy. We got Eugene. We've got Josh. We got Michael, Daryl, Colt, Mr. Deadhead. We got Kevin Reed. We've got Eugene Payne, Sully, Kevin, Joe, Kenneth. We've got Steelers Son. We've got Ben Wright. We've got Marquise Parker. We got Tristan White. Black Wolf is here. We got Nabil. We got David. We got Jordan, Robert. Got a good crew of Steelers fans ready to talk some football here today, man. So let's bring in our producer here. Producer Ponzi is here. It was actually his birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to Ponzi.
I was turned 21. First time, being able to legally, buy alcohol, get all the fun stuff.
Did you buy a 12-pack on the way home last night?
No, totally.
Yeah, exactly. So Ponzi, let's talk some football here. What is the percent chance that the Steelers win Thursday night versus the Cincinnati Bengals? I think on paper, everything points towards the Steelers win. The Bengals are really struggling both sides of the ball right now. You can argue they're a bottom 3 team in the entire National Football League without Joe Burrow. And they were somewhat competitive on the road versus Green Bay, but honestly, I thought Green Bay kind of played down to their competition. And, I think some people look at the historical precedents with Pittsburgh in particular under Mike Tomlin. They're 0-6 in divisional Thursday night football games on the road. I think Tomlin's like 2-8 on Thursday night football on the road in his career. It hasn't been a great go of it for the Steelers on Thursday night football. So I think some people are kind of saying, this could be a Tomlin trap game, yada, yada, yada. And it looks like Trey Hendrickson isn't going to be able to get to go on Thursday either. He's dealing with a hip issue, and he hasn't practiced all week. So it's certainly looking to me, Ponzi, like the Steelers are going to have a major mismatch heading into Thursday night. And, unless they, completely botch this game with multiple turnovers, penalties, all this stuff, and shoot themselves in their own foot like they did against Seattle, I really don't see any way the Steelers can give this football game away.
Last 2 weeks and Thursday night, we talked about it. You had the Eagles and Giants. We were all expecting the Eagles to win, and the Giants came up with the upset on the short week. And then, not Seattle, Los Angeles versus San Francisco. San Francisco came up with the win there. And, I think that, in terms of the talent disparity, I think this is, by far the largest in margin. However, I don't know with divisional games on a short week. You could just never tell. If I had to scale it, I'm leaning towards an 80, which is not bad by at all. But, you never know. That 20% chance, something happens, this fluke. The Thursday night games have been really weird this year so far. And I just don't know if we're really going to see a blowout as many as people think going into this game against the Bengals and old head Joe Flacco.
Yeah, it's gonna. I think Cam Hayward called it the icy hot bowl. There's been a bunch of different names for this matchup. I think it's just the third matchup between quarterbacks in NFL history of quarterbacks where both QBs for either team are over the age of 40. Drew Brees, Tom Brady. I believe it was Doug Flutie and Testaverde back in the 90s.
Then actually early 2000s.
It was the early 2000s?
When they were, I believe it was with the Chargers, and I want to say the Jets.
Yeah, something like that. And now it's going to be Rodgers versus Flacco on Thursday night. So certainly an interesting matchup. If Trey Hendrickson can't go, man, I just don't know how this Bengals defense is going to be able to stop the Steelers, specifically the run game, too. So I'm really looking forward to Thursday night, guys. Let me know down there in the comments section what's the percent chance. Right now, we have a live poll with this question. The leading vote getter with 50% of the vote is 76 to 100% chance. So it seems like fans for the Steelers are pretty darn confident this week. And then another 37% give them a 51 to 75% chance. But 13% of Steelers fans think that there's a less than 50% chance that the Steelers win this ball game.
Maybe they just believe, you can never count your chickens before they hatch.
I guess, but even if you think that this game is going to be competitive and it could go either way, you don't think they have more than a 50% chance of winning? I understand the argument of this game might be closer than we think. This is a divisional game on the road on a Thursday. Those are tough games to win. I understand that perspective, but I just don't know how you can be of the opinion that you think the Bengals are going to win this game, and the Bengals have a more than 50% chance of winning. I think at the very most they have a 40% chance of winning.
At the very most, I think they have the same range. But I guess the whole thought is, Mike Tomlin's record on Thursday night, the short week. I guess one of the older rosters in the NFL. But at the same time, the Bengals have not been good. They haven't won since week 2 when Joe Burrow started the game.
Exactly.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. I think the Steelers, if they take care of their business and they don't hand the game to Cincinnati, this game, frankly, shouldn't be close. But if you guys want to get on the show today, if you have a Steelers question that you want to get on the show, we just got a $10 super chat that we'll put up on screen here momentarily. But you guys can super chat to the channel here today. It's a donation that helps us out here. It helps us pay rent, helps us keep the lights on, helps us improve our graphics on our equipment. Every single dime that you guys donate that we get goes right to the channel, all right? So if you guys want to donate to the show today and get your question up on screen, if you got a comment that you want me and Ponzi to talk about, feel free to send in any dollar amount. We greatly appreciate all of your guys' help. And then we got $10 super chat here from Gary Frank with a 10. Says, happy birthday, Ponzi.
Appreciate it, Gary.
Yeah, it's great stuff there. Ponzi got to celebrate his birthday yesterday at work. We had a very long day at work yesterday. So shout out to Ponzi for the hard work he puts in for our channel here. But we got our first segment coming up here, guys, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then later on, we've got some very interesting trade buzz surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers that we got to get to as well. So we're not going to waste any more of your time here. Let's get into our first segment of today. Get those super chats in if you got a question or a comment you want to get on the show in between segments here. But we're going to get into our Steelers content here today, guys. Hope you enjoy our segments. And with that, let's get into our first one, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. You will not believe what former Steelers offensive coordinator Bruce Arians said about this year's Steelers offense on the Pat McAfee Show this week. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we're going to be covering the latest news and rumors surrounding the black and gold. But before we get into the content today, and I tell you what Bruce had to say about Arthur Smith, Aaron Rodgers, and the Steelers offense, make sure you click that subscribe button and join the over 100,000 Steelers fans that have now clicked that subscribe button and joined the Steelers Talk family. We are the largest individually run Steelers news program anywhere on the YouTube platform. We are the first individually run Steelers news program to hit 100,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. But guys, the reason why we have over 100,000 subscribers, it's not by accident. It's because we give you guys daily Steelers videos that are free informative, and entertaining. Also, we have breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a big move. And with the trade deadline coming up, guys, you're not going to want to not be subscribed because we're going to be going live whenever the con artist makes a big trade. We also go live at least twice a week, including for every single Steelers game that they play this year with our live watch parties where we react to the game together. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. It's 100% free to join the channel and join the over 100,000 plus that have already joined the Steelers Talk family. All right, so now let's talk about Bruce Arians, former Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's starting to kind of come on the bandwagon here for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense as he went on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week and says that Arthur Smith, the coordinator for here in Pittsburgh now, is doing a quote-unquote hell of a job coordinating this team. This is what Bruce had to say on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week. The Steelers are growing on me. I didn't like them that much early in the year, but I really like Arthur Smith and what he's doing offensively. I think he's doing a hell of a job. They should run away with that division right now. Artie Smith, to me, has always been one of the best running coordinators in the league. Now, Arians was very complimentary of what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing right now, but he didn't have all praise for the Steelers offense at this point. He did point out some of the very real weaknesses and downsides to the Steelers offense right now. This is what Bruce had to say. Now, drop back and pass, not so fast. I don't think they can protect. It's a first and second down offense, and they're doing a good job staying ahead of the chains. Keep the third down short and get the ball out of Aaron's hand quick. So I think Bruce does a really good job here analyzing the Steelers offense, what they're doing well, what kind of their style of play is, but also maybe what their weakness is. And I think what the Steelers have been doing a really good job of lately is that they've been staying ahead of the sticks. They've been running the football effectively. They've been not getting into too many third down and longs because, plain simply, guys, the Steelers' strength is not drop back pass. I don't think they have the pure pass protection and available to be able to play that kind of offense, and frankly, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the mobility to escape pressure when those first couple reads are not there in a true drop-back passing environment. Plus, the Steelers' receivers right now, especially with Calvin Austin III out of the lineup, there's no one really out there that can consistently beat man coverage, especially when they're playing too high man, where you've got two guys, two safeties deep down the field. It's just not an offense that's built to run that kind of style, and Bruce is 100% right about that, but he's also right that the Steelers are playing extremely efficiently right now, and I think that, the weaknesses that the Steelers have shown as a drop-back passing offense to this point and how they're kind of not doing that at this point is exactly why the Pittsburgh Steelers could use another wide receiver. Somebody, even when Calvin Austin III gets back, get this offense another weapon that can separate versus man coverage and give yourself a better shot on those third and long situations. And maybe hopefully Broderick Jones in this offensive line can continue to gel, get better protecting Aaron Rodgers throughout the season, and then you can do more true drop-back passing stuff and make this offense even more diverse than it already is. And the thing is with the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys, is I believe this team with this offense and this style of offense can win a lot of games, all right? I think they can get, once again, up to double-digit wins this year and then some. I think they can win the division with this style of offense because we went into this season, guys, what did we say about this team? Their best chance at winning a Super Bowl this year and competing for a Super Bowl is to have an excellent defense with a good enough offense that doesn't turn the football over and a team that can run the ball. We've seen that formula play out over the last 2 weeks. Now, obviously, Minnesota, Cleveland, I don't think either of those teams are Super Bowl caliber teams, and we're going to have to see how the Steelers play against the Green Bay Packers, against the Indianapolis Colts, against the Buffalo Bills to really get a gauge as to just how good this Steelers team is. But the defense is starting to get into this area where they're looking really, really good. If they keep that trajectory and this Steelers offense can continue to play efficiently, stay ahead of the sticks, run the football effectively, and then not turn the football over and stay really efficient in the red zone, that's another big part of this. I think the Steelers have a team that could, in theory, go on a run in January and can beat any other team in the National Football League on any given Sunday. Another analyst in the NFL space that also is very impressed with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is Dan Orlovsky. And guys, Orlovsky's been a big critic of the Steelers offense for a very long time, so this kind of switch up from Orlovsky is definitely notable. This is what Orlovsky had to say on the Pat McAfee show this week regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. There's no question the Steelers know who they are, their identity, what they should and should not do. The way I kind of categorize their offense after a couple of weeks now is it's creatively cautious. That's meant as a positive and a compliment. Here's the way I view it right now. They started this 6 offensive line package where there's 6 offensive linemen on the field, and sometimes there's 1 tight end and sometimes there's 2 tight ends. Versus the Browns, they had 6 different plays out of that 6 offensive line package. I love when teams take simple things and they make them look complicated to the defense. So now the Steelers are doing things from an offensive perspective that are simple for them, but it's complicated for the defense. Pittsburgh's pass game is really one of 2 things. It's either a quick game, like right now it's happening, and if you play zone, Aaron's finding a completion, and if you play man, it's a one-on-one, or they're moving the pocket. I think it's really, really, really smart offensive football in Pittsburgh right now. Very impressed. And like Bruce Arians, guys, like I mentioned, Dan has not always been, just like a Steelers homer, always, praising the Pittsburgh Steelers and their offense. Last year, he was very critical of the Steelers, and he correctly predicted that their offensive model under Russell Wilson last year was not a sustainable model for offensive success against playoff caliber teams. This is what Orlovsky had to say also on the McAfee show this week. Last year, the Steelers had some success on offense, and you guys remember me saying it ain't good enough on offense. It's not going to beat teams that actually matter. I feel differently about this group. I watched this offense for the past 3 weeks, and I go, this offense can be good enough to beat a Buffalo, a Kansas City, and Indy. So that is a big shift in kind of narrative from Mr. Dan Orlovsky here. And once again, I agree with the analysis here this time from Dan. And, I think he's right on the money that Arthur Smith really understands the strengths and weaknesses of this Steelers team. And they're doing a really good job at limiting the weaknesses while accentuating the strengths and keeping things simple for the Steelers offense while making it very difficult and very complicated for the defenses that have to go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you guys have been following Arthur Smith's kind of coaching philosophy as a play caller, going back to Tennessee, they didn't run a whole lot of creative stuff in Tennessee. It was a lot of outside zone. It was a lot of stick. It was a lot of quick game concepts with Ryan Tannehill. It was a lot of under center play action. A lot of the stuff you're seeing in Pittsburgh right now, but it worked in Tennessee. He overachieved with this style of offense in Atlanta despite some really bad quarterback play. And now I would say he's overachieving here in Pittsburgh, at least this season. And his philosophy, guys, is that we're not going to run anything crazy schematically. We're not going to be a Shanahan-level offense or a Kevin O'Connell offense or Sean McVay or Matt LaFleur or any of these guys that run like a very creative offense. Ben Johnson is another guy that does that. We're going to run what we run really, really well, and we're going to keep things simple for our offense so that our guys can execute at a high level, but we're going to kind of package a bunch of different plays from the same formation so the defense has no idea what we're running on any given play. And that's exactly what we're seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Dan pointed it out in his quote. You have 6 different plays on 17 snaps from that jumbo personnel look with Spencer Anderson and Darnell Washington in there. And the result is the defense just has no idea what's coming. It could be a pass. It could be a run. It could be a play action pass. Like, they can do a lot of different things, and they can marry concepts together to be able to stay on script and do the things you need to do to stay on schedule and get touchdowns and move the football effectively. And my take on the whole situation right now, guys, is that Pittsburgh's offense does have its limitations. If this team takes penalties, if they take negative yardage, if they start taking sacks and they get into these 3rd and long situations, we've seen it throughout the season. They don't have necessarily the pass protection or the receiving weapons to be able to get first downs in those kinds of situations. But what they do well is that they have Aaron Rodgers, one of the most intelligent quarterbacks in the league. He gets the ball out fast. He keeps the ball moving. He keeps taking a profit. They keep staying ahead of the chains. They keep moving those chains, and then they get into the red zone eventually, and then they score touchdowns because they've got a size advantage. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the philosophy that Arthur Smith is bringing here to Pittsburgh. It's not flashy, all right, but it's definitely effective at this point. And as long as it keeps staying effective, guys, even though the Steelers certainly have their limitations, which could maybe be helped by trading for a wide receiver, wink, wink, Omar Khan, I certainly think that this offense has what it takes, especially if the Steelers defense can continue to play on the trajectory that they're playing at, to be a very effective offense this season here in Pittsburgh. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Is Pittsburgh's offensive success sustainable long-term versus playoff caliber teams? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pin question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I'm telling you about our sponsor, simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. And with that, I have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And you and I, we make decisions every single day, right? But not all those decisions get you paid. But on Prize Picks, which is an app that you guys can download on your phone for free today, your correct decisions can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is now in full swing, and you better believe I'll be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so while withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure, Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will not count that as a loss. So for my Prize Picks lineup for Thursday Night Football this week, I'm taking the more on DK Metcalf receiving yards, the more on rushing yards for Jaylen Warren, and the more on interceptions for Joe Flacco. So if you guys want to get a play-in, put in a lineup on the Prize Picks app for today. Right now, when you download the app today, and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So I want to finish up today's show by kind of addressing two kind of things I've been seeing on Steelers Twitter and about the Pittsburgh Steelers pass rush, all right? Because right now you got T.J. Watt, Nick Herbig, and Alex Highsmith all healthy right now. That's obviously fantastic. They're doing a great job getting to the quarterback. But there's two things that I'm kind of taking issue with right now that I want to address on the show. The first one it's kind of not from Steelers fans. It's from Browns fans and some from some just general NFL accounts, which is that Myles Garrett, quote unquote, gets more attention than T.J. Watt and therefore is the better player because of that, even though T.J. Watt has outpaced Myles Garrett in pretty much every single statistical category since Garrett has entered the league, okay? I think that this is just untrue based on the numbers. You guys can take a look at the chip, double team, and triple team percentage of Myles Garrett and TJ Watt this season. And you guys can see it's pretty darn comparable, all right? TJ gets chipped 10% more than Myles. Now, Myles does get double teamed slightly more than TJ Watt does, but then TJ actually has been getting triple teamed more than Myles Garrett this season, all right? So what those numbers tell you guys is that TJ Watt is very much in the ballpark in terms of how much opposing offenses are respecting his skill set in terms of the amount of help that they are sending in their direction, all right? So this narrative that Myles Garrett is better because, he gets more double and triple team help, it's just not borne out by the facts and by the numbers and the statistics. And you guys can see here, even in the double team or pure triple team numbers, Myles Garrett gets purely doubled or tripled about 70% of the time, and TJ Watt is right in that same ballpark. And when you include the chip blocks that TJ Watt gets, you could even make an argument that TJ gets even more attention than Myles Garrett in terms of, the amount of his snaps where he is getting contacted by 4 hands, all right? It's like almost 100% of the time TJ Watt is getting contacted by at least 2 players on that play, and that is very comparable to Myles Garrett. So that's just not an excuse to say, well, Myles Garrett has worse stats than TJ Watt, but he gets double team more. It's just like, that's technically true, but TJ Watt sees just about as much help given from opposing offenses as Myles does, so it's not really that much of a talking point in my opinion. But at the end of the day, guys, both of these guys are elite. I think that, when you look at Myles Garrett and you look at TJ Watt, they're both elite players. They're both tier 1 level guys that are frankly worth the money, in my opinion, that they got this offseason. And, I think that, there's a lot of fights to be had on X and Twitter and all these different things, but this is one where I think we can all agree that both of these players are really freaking good. Now, the second topic when it comes to the Steelers pass rush that I want to talk about is this discussion that I've been hearing on Twitter quite recently, which is surrounding Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig. And, people talk about, oh, we need to start Nick Herbig over Alex Highsmith, or we need to keep Alex Highsmith over Nick Herbig. And what I don't like about this discussion, guys, is that kind of the assumption is, okay, we have to play one of them and then we have to bench the other one. It's like, no, man. Pittsburgh's three-headed monster at the edge rusher position is a major asset for this team, and I cannot stress this enough. All three of these guys are going to play starter-level snaps, all right? Nick Herbig had the highest amount of snaps compared to either TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith versus the Browns. Now, they rested Watt on the final drive of the game. They did a little bit of that with Highsmith as well, so that's why Herbig was able to get to 61% snap share. But the reality of the situation, guys, is that the Steelers are going to rotate these guys in because it keeps them fresh, and then also, it doesn't give opposing offenses a break. I think people kind of, especially because they play Madden and you have to set a depth chart in every single play, you have your starting two outside linebackers, right? So people, because they're so Madden-brained, they think, okay, well, we have to bench either Nick Herbig or Alex Highsmith. Which one do we bench? And it's like, no, you play all three. That's what you do, all right? You rotate these guys in, and there's two huge benefits to having three starter quality edge rushers, and frankly, number one caliber edge rushers, right? The first benefit is that Pittsburgh can keep a healthy rotation when everybody's in there, all right? That keeps guys fresh throughout the season, and it also keeps them fresh throughout the course of a game, all right? So opposing offenses do not have a break versus this elite edge rush trio. Then also, if somebody gets injured, the Steelers still have an elite edge duo, all right? So, when Alex Highsmith goes down, you can trust Nick Herbig to go in there and still produce at a high level. If Nick Herbig gets injured, just like he was at the beginning of the season, you can expect Alex Highsmith to play at a high level. If TJ Watt goes down, you would hope that Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig would be able to hold down the fort, all right? Having these three guys is extremely important to the Steelers' hopes for winning a Super Bowl because, as we talked about with the offense earlier in this show, you're not really expecting the offense to score 30-plus points a game. You're expecting them to be competent, which means to win a Super Bowl, you need this defense to be special. And what makes this defense special, guys, is their edge rusher trio. So I keep hearing people talking about trading Alex Highsmith, all this stuff, but it's like, okay, you trade Highsmith, and then TJ Watt gets injured. What then? We're going to start Jack Sawyer in this defense? It's like, I like Jack Sawyer as a fourth edge rusher, but it's nice to have that injury insurance, man. It really is. Now, he might be saying at home, I can already hear you guys typing in the comment section, but Jack, we got to pay Nick Herbig next offseason, so we might as well trade Alex Highsmith for a draft pick while we still can. And my response to that, guys, is that, that is a future problem. That is not a now problem, all right? Right now, you have all three under contract within the realm of the cap limits. And, that's not going to change over the course of the season. So with the Steelers in a win-now posture, trying to win a Super Bowl this year, trading away Alex Highsmith doesn't help them accomplish their short-term goals. All right, now if the season was over and they had no chance of winning a Super Bowl, then okay, maybe you think about trading Alex Highsmith because you're right. You do have to pay Nick Herbig down the road. But, I think there's a very specific way you can handle this situation without just trading Alex Highsmith in a win-now season. All right, this is how I would handle it, guys. You pay Nick Herbig his extension next offseason, but you don't have the money for that, or at least a large chunk of it, kick in until the following season, okay? Because Herbig still has a full year left on his rookie contract, so you don't really mess with that all too much. You will add a little bit on that with the signing bonus, but you can keep that contract relatively manageable from a financial standpoint, and you can still pay Alex Highsmith his current figure next year. So you can keep TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Nick Herbig under contract if you want to for a whole nother season, all right? But I do think eventually, if you're going to be paying Nick Herbig a bunch of money, and don't get it twisted, he's going to be making a lot of money on his next deal, eventually it does make sense to trade Alex Highsmith for a high draft pick. Ideally, you probably trade him away 2 off seasons from now because he's got 2 years left on his deal after this season. So you have Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig as your three-headed monster for the next 2 seasons, okay? And then that next offseason, you unload Alex Highsmith for hopefully a high draft pick at that point, all right, while he's under the final year of his deal. I think that's the best way to handle this situation. But as for this season, like I talked about, guys, this is a win-now season for the Steelers, and this edge rusher trio is the best thing about this team. You trade Alex Highsmith, and you kind of lose something that makes this team truly special and unique in terms of a defensive perspective. All right, like I talked about, you want to have that three-headed monster at edge rusher. They're going to be playing these guys all starter-level snaps. All right, they're not going to take Nick Herbig off the field and only play him 10% of the time. He's going to play 40 to 50% of the snaps throughout this season, guys. They're going to be rotating him in. So it just doesn't make sense to me to trade Alex Highsmith at this point, guys. And I think it's time we stop having that discussion. So let me know down there in the comment section, should the Pittsburgh Steelers keep Alex Highsmith this year? Type T for trade or K for keep. For me, I'm keeping him. All right, I really like this edge rusher trio. It's not something I'm willing to sacrifice even to get a receiver at this point. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. We'll have more coverage for you guys tomorrow here on Steelers Talk. And until then, here we go, Steelers. All right, how many super chats we got here, Ponzi? A good bit. All right, let's do it. Oh, you got Breezy 420 with a 2. Says, I'd give up a third in Muth for Brown, Waddle, or Olave. You're not getting A.J. Brown for a third in Muth. You're just not, all right? Like we'll talk about A.J. Brown here in a little bit and kind of an interesting trade idea that CBS had. But, man, Brown is so expensive. He is, he's a legit number one guy. And he's complaining about not getting enough targets in Philadelphia's offense. This is a run-heavy offense here in Pittsburgh that already features a heavy run game. How happy is he going to be in this offense? That's a big question mark surrounding A.J. Brown. Jalen Waddle, he's under contract for the next several seasons. He just signed a new contract extension. And even if they are rebuilding, he's a young receiver. Like, he is a young building block. So Jalen Waddle, 0% chance he gets traded. And then Chris Olave is the most realistic of that group, Breezy, in my opinion. Really good route runner, better hands than people give him credit for. He's got good speed, not great speed. So he's more of a 1B / really good number 2 receiver, in my opinion. I would certainly like to get him. And his issue is the concussion stuff, right? So, that's a bit of a concern where some people are concerned that if he takes another concussion, he might be done forever. He might quit football. And if you give up like a third-round pick for Olave, the risk is he gets a concussion, he retires, and you gave up a third-round pick for somebody that plays a very short period of time for you. So that's the risk with Olave. But I think Olave is exactly the type of receiver that I would want, Ponzi, because he's a great man-to-man separator. And if you want this offense to be better as a drop-back passing game, and to be better on third down and long and that sort of stuff, Olave's the type of guy that can make you better in that regard. $5 from Black Wolf says, question, why are people so on this A.J. Brown trade? Isn't bringing him in just another DK? Think we could get a better complimentary wide receiver than A.J. Brown. Listen, man, they're very similar types of guys. I would say A.J.'s probably a better, more versatile route runner. Now, he's not the most versatile guy in the world, but I think his route tree is a little bit more extensive than DK's. And I would actually say, as crazy as it sounds, I think DK is the more menacing yak threat than AJ is. And I think AJ is a much better 50-50 ball winner down the sideline. And the reason why I say that is because DK's got the incredible long speed at his size. No DB in the world wants to tackle that when he gets a full head of steam. And A.J. Brown also brings that. He's not quite as big, but he's very fast and obviously very big, super strong. But he pairs that with really great ball skills down the sideline. DK, for being a big guy, isn't the best in the world at making contested catches. He can do it, but he's not quite as good as A.J. Brown or as consistent in that regard. So if you put two of these cats in the same offense, I mean, oh my God. And then you got Calvin Austin in there, the kind of the smaller guy, the shiftier guy that can run some of the more rowdy type of stuff. It's an intriguing idea, Black Wolf. I have to admit, it's an intriguing idea with the A.J. Brown stuff, but honestly, I just don't think the Eagles are going to want to come to the table for a trade. I just really don't. We got another one here from Shaker Hand for a 10. It says, talk for a while. Is that Steelers need a wide receiver that can also block on early downs with Calvin Austin the third out? This is more needed. We also have too many tight ends. Why can't tight ends line up more like wideouts and some looks? Well, they do. That's the problem, Shaker Hand, is that they do line up Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith in the slot a lot, and they just don't get open. That's the answer, all right? They're not getting open versus man coverage. So, I would say Muth is much more of a zone beater guy. All right, he's not like the shifty route runner guy that's going to wiggle and get out of man coverage like a Brock Bowers will at the tight end position, for example. But he's kind of like a Zach Ertz where he'll find the soft spots and zones really well. And he's got somewhat reliable hands. And then Jonnu is kind of more of a true yak threat where you just get him the ball out in space. He's not a route runner necessarily or 50-50 ball winner, anything like that. So they do use them as like slot receivers, but they just don't get the football as much as maybe you would want because they're not great route runners. So in terms of the wide receiver 2 discussion, Calvin, listen, man, They've used Calvin as a legit number 2 receiver in this offense, and he doesn't run block. So that tells me that Arthur has designed this offense so that you can have a wide receiver that doesn't run block and for it to be still functional. I honestly don't know how important it is to the Steelers that the wide receiver run blocks anymore. If you would have asked me before the season, I would have told you, yeah, Arthur Smith needs guys that can run block. That's why I thought Roman Wilson was going to outsnap Calvin Austin III this year. And it just hasn't happened, right? So I think that Arthur Smith has kind of lowered his kind of need for wide receivers that can run block. Really what they're relying on is their jumbo personnel packages to create, that space in the run game. So I don't know how important that is, honestly, for Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin at this point. But yeah, I agree. There's too many cooks in the kitchen in the tight end room right now, Ponzi, especially the ones making the money. All right, Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, they're not getting nearly the production that they should be getting to justify their contracts. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they end up trading Muth before the deadline, especially if it means they can get that third receiver that they're looking for. $2 from Brandon Crotty. Says, this is phenomenal, paranormal in the funhouse. Love y'all. Brandon, we love you, man. Appreciate you. Ponzi, if you see an Emma Voth in the chat, make her a mod. Yeah, make her a mod. $5 from Uriah Brobes says George Pickens is a god. We should have kept him. When we traded him, I got his jersey ASAP. I knew he would be different than other wide receivers that left. Listen, man, what's that? Mod. Just standard, I'd say. I think. But Uriah, I think when we watched George Pickens having his success in Dallas, I think we just assumed that he would have the same level of success here in Pittsburgh. And I just don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think that the Steelers, how do I put this? Like, George is obviously a huge talent, right? But we also know that he's pretty volatile.
So I feel like, as the resident Cowboys expert here, I feel like, George has really put it into a role because Dak's kind of taken him under his wing and kind of managed those crash outs. I mean, like you saw week 3 against the Bears, he kind of had that moment where he dropped the ball and it got picked off the ground. But the thing is that I feel like George just kind of needed someone like Dak who's going to mentor him and kind of limit him and tell him, hey, no matter what, I'm still going to try to get you the ball no matter what.
Well, also, do we think George should be happy with getting Calvin Austin III's targets this year? No.
I think he fits better in the Cowboys offense.
This isn't I think George fits as a quote-unquote wide receiver 2 in Dallas's offense because they're a more pass-heavy group.
And not only that,
here in Pittsburgh, you want to run the football. You want to give the ball to Jonnu. You want to give the ball to DK. I think the Steelers were worried that because they brought in DK and they wanted him to get the number 1 targets, that George, who was already being late to meetings, who was late to practices, who was late to fucking games, they just didn't want that as a potential stick of dynamite in their locker room where he might get upset that he's not getting as many targets and he's not being treated as the number 1 receiver. He might be saying, hey, I've been the one, putting up the production here in Pittsburgh before, and now this new guy, DK Metcalf, comes in, steals my money, steals my role. I kind of understand why Pittsburgh was like, you know what, this is a volatile kind of situation that we don't want to go into the season with. But from a pure football perspective, Uriah, I completely get you. The idea of having DK Metcalf and George Pickens in this offense, I mean, it's exciting. You could throw up those deep balls, those 50-50 balls down the sideline to George. You could throw the ball downfield a little bit more. You could do all those things. And Yeah, I think George was maybe a little bit underrated as a route runner, and he could make those tough catches, right? So, and from a football perspective, from a Madden perspective, for example, when you don't have when you're not in the building and you don't have to deal with the person being late to meetings and being immature and doing all those things, it can be so easy to say, why did you trade him? But if you've ever worked with somebody that's not a team player, all those different things, it's very difficult to work with that guy, especially if his role is being diminished, right? So I wish George the best of luck. I'm happy that he's having success in Dallas. All that stuff, best of luck to him. But, I think that if the Steelers can get somebody that's a little bit more complimentary, somebody that maybe is expecting not as big of a role as George is expecting, and somebody that's a little bit more professional and a bit more ready to, handle, hopefully a Super Bowl caliber run here in Pittsburgh, I think it's going to be a win-win scenario that works out for all parties involved, including George. All right, so I'm glad George is playing well. But I also understand why the Steelers felt like, they were okay letting him go at the same time.
Putting more perspective on that for the win-win side of it, you get a third-round pick from Dallas, which is kind of be a late second round just because of how bad they've been playing.
Well, I think Dallas is playing well enough to get 6 to 8 wins. Yeah, their defense is terrible, but I think they're still going to win 6 to 8 games.
You think that, that maybe put them in that top 10 spot, top 15?
Yeah, and that'll be around middle of the third round.
Yeah, so I feel like it's still a pretty good draft pick.
Still a decent draft pick. You can get a good player, but obviously, losing the talent of George Pickens is tough, because he's such a good player, right?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I completely get it. But $5 from Tony Perez is if Metcalf is content in getting 5 to 10 catches a game, we don't need a number 2 receiver. Distribution is the key. Here's the thing that I think gets misconstrued in this whole discussion, Ponzi. The Steelers 100% believe Calvin is a number 2 receiver.
Yes.
All right, the Steelers really like Calvin Austin III. All right, and if you don't believe me, who's been getting the ball in the fourth quarter quite a bit when he's been playing? It's been Calvin. He's the one that got the touchdown there on a crucial third down against the Patriots to win them the football game there, right? Rodgers trusts Calvin. He's extremely fast. He is one of the most underrated route runners in the entire game. He's one of the fastest players in the game, so he can be a yak threat as well if you get him the ball out in space. Calvin, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated receivers in the game today, and the Steelers believe he's like a Tank Dell. They believe that he is like a Darnell Mooney, like an undersized kind of number 2 guy that can play on the inside, can play on the outside, and be effective. And I think, Calvin isn't going to complain about getting number 2 receiver looks either. So they really like Calvin, which is why I think they're going to be looking for either a true number 2, again, another true number 2 via trade, or a wide receiver 3 kind of guy. This is why I would not be surprised if they get an Allen Lazard, where Lazard can be the number 3 who has chemistry with Rodgers. It wouldn't take a lot of time to get him ramped up with him and develop chemistry and trust with him, but Calvin is still your number 2. And I think a lot of Steelers fans would hate that, and I kind of understand. I think Allen Lazard stinks as a football player, but I can see where the thinking goes when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But a lot of people just kind of trash on Calvin Austin III's name like he's not a good receiver, when he absolutely is, in my opinion. Man, he can separate versus man. He leads the team by a wide margin in separation versus man coverage this year, by the way. Awesome route runner. He's a deep threat. He can track the ball down the field. He makes some tough-ass catches, man. Remember that back shoulder he had against the Jets? For a little guy, he makes
that was a tough catch.
He makes tough catches, man. Remember that one in the playoff game last year over the middle where he got demolished over the middle? He still caught it.
It's crazy how, I love Calvin Austin. I think that he brings a great skill set to this team.
Yeah.
But also it's one of those things where it's this Steelers scheme doesn't need 3 wide receivers that consistently, separate, because, they have DK, they have Calvin. They were really expecting Roman to fit into that rotational role, I feel, but it's just...
It hasn't worked out. What they need is they need that third piece.
Yeah.
They need that third piece for when they do go to 3 wide receivers and they do have to air it out a little bit more.
They're not trusting Scotty Miller or Roman Wilson.
Or Jonnu Smith or Pat Freiermuth.
Exactly.
You want that third receiver to be able to separate, and, you don't want Calvin to be the only guy that can separate versus man, right? You don't just want to have one option. in that scenario. You would like to have Calvin, who's a good receiver in his own right, and then another guy you can trust to win one-on-one in man coverage. And I think that that's what the Steelers are looking for. Plus, if you do get an injury to DK or Calvin, you have that third receiver that you trust to come in. I don't think the Steelers have that right now. Like, 0 targets for Scotty Miller on Sunday. They seem to not trust him enough to get him touches. Then you got Roman Wilson, who played 8 snaps where they were passing the football last week. They clearly don't trust him enough right now to put him in that role. They don't trust Isaiah Hodgins to even play him over Keshawn Williams right now. And to give him a helmet over Keshawn Williams, and then Ben Skoranek is a blocker, right? So I think what the Steelers are looking for is that third guy that they can inject into this room that can be almost like a wide receiver 3 when everyone's healthy, that they trust, but also somebody that they can trust to be a wide receiver 2 if one of their top 2 guys gets injured. I think that's the guy, the caliber of guy that they're looking at right now. So we'll see if that's Rashid Shaheed. We'll see if that's somebody else. There's certainly some names that fit that bill. Alan Lazard. But, I think if you're expecting an A.J. Brown or, Devontae Smith or one of these huge names that's being thrown out there, I don't think the Steelers are interested in those kind of guys, man.
I think, we were talking about, I think the highest level of name that makes sense is Chris Olave.
Jacoby Myers.
You think Chris Olave is lower than Jacoby Myers in terms of high level?
I would say Olave's higher because Olave, something you have to realize about Olave is that when he was drafted to be an immediate number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
So he's seen number 1 level targets his entire career. So he might be one of those guys that's expecting to get number 1 wide receiver targets to the team that he gets traded to. And I'm not sure if the Steelers can provide that for him. But Jacoby Myers played many seasons in New England and in Las Vegas where he wasn't, the leading target getter. Like, he understands that he's more of a wide receiver too. And I would love to add Jacoby Myers for sure. And if you could have DK, Myers, and Calvin Austin III, that's a legitimate wide receiver trio. I don't think the Steelers have a legitimate trio right now, and I think that that's something that they would like to get to upgrade this roster heading down the stretch. $2 from Chris says, Jack, we must trade Roman Wilson for the right wide receiver. I think the Steelers will be open to including Roman. Like, if there's a team, like let's say the Raiders say, we'll trade you Jacoby Myers for a 3rd and Roman Wilson, or a 4th and Roman Wilson, and Roman is the piece that they want in return for Jacoby Myers, I don't think he'll stop the Steelers from making that deal. Because right now, Scotty Miller is getting more playing time than Roman Wilson when Calvin has been out. All right, with all due respect to Scotty Miller, that should not be happening with a guy that you absolutely – if the Steelers really thought Roman Wilson could play, they would be playing him more, all right? And that's just not what's happening. So, it frustrates me because I thought Roman Wilson on film looked pretty good. I thought he ran some pretty darn good routes.
Had a pretty good preseason.
Made some big plays. So it's just a huge head-scratcher to me why this team won't give Roman Wilson a shot. But, listen, man, if you're not going to use him, I'd rather, use him in a trade to go get a receiver that they will actually use. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. $20 from Rad Doctor. Rad, you're a real one. We love you, pal. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat here on a Tuesday. Chris with another 2 says, guys, I want Warren and Gainwell to get more passes. They've been getting a lot, man. They have more. I think Warren has more catches than – I think he's number 2 in catches right now, if I'm not mistaken, on the team. And Gainwell's in the top 5. These 2 guys get already a lot of attention there, Chris. $2 from Black Wolf says, what the F is up with Roman, honestly? I don't know, but whatever it is, the Steelers clearly don't trust him to take on a heavy workload. And I don't get it. When he's out there, he looks like he runs pretty decent routes. He's made some big plays in the preseason. He got a 1st down on his lone target last week. But if Calvin Austin III is out, he should be getting more than 8 snaps on passing downs, on passing plays. And Scotty Miller got 27 snaps? To be tripled in your snap share compared to Scotty Miller, that's embarrassing for a 3rd-round pick that was drafted just a year ago. That's embarrassing. It is. And I don't know if it's on Roman. I don't know if it's on Mike Tomlin for not wanting to play him. I don't know what the deal is there, but clearly somebody in that Steelers organization feels like Roman isn't ready for the larger role that Calvin usually plays in this offense when he's healthy. So I don't know, man. $2 from Shannon says, does Kenny Gainwell get more involved this week? He was already pretty involved last week. He had 12 touches last week. Like, that's pretty involved to me. He had 6 carries and six catches. I think he touched the ball just about as much as Jaylen Warren did. So, I can't imagine that he's going to get more than that. So I guess the answer to the question is no, Shannon. But, if he gets 10 touches a game, that's pretty good for Kenny G. $10 from Steelers Sons is what's the best case scenario for the Steelers trade-wise, draft, and this year to get them in the Super Bowl or at least Super Bowl caliber team for years to come. I don't know, man. That's a lot. That's a whole video's worth of information right there, man. But the short version of that is in terms of trade this year, I would think Jacoby Myers would be an awesome addition. Juwan Jennings, if he's going to be on the market here, I know that he's been dealing with some issues with the 49ers. If you can get Juwan Jennings, that would be a hell of an ideal trade. If you could get Jennings for like a 5th, that would be an awesome trade for the Pittsburgh Steelers. In terms of the draft, obviously the draft evaluation on these quarterbacks hasn't been fully done yet, so we'll see when we get to the spring. But obviously, if you want to be a Super Bowl contender for many years to come, you got to get the quarterback right. All right, you got to get the quarterback right in next year's draft if you're going to be able to be a Super Bowl contender for many years to come. $5 from Mark says, realistically, I think we trade for a 6th for Kirk. Talking about Christian Kirk there, I'm guessing, or a 4th for Adonai Mitchell. He was a healthy scratch on Sunday. We scouted him out of Texas, good wide receiver. Yeah, man. Adonai, I know, is kind of in the doghouse with Indy right now because he dropped a ball before he crossed the goal line earlier in the season, but he's a talented guy. He is. And he's a guy that intrigues me a lot because he is so talented. But the downside is that it appears that he's a little bit of a head case. And the Steelers have actively tried to get those kinds of receivers out of the building lately. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, all right? They don't like these kind of quote-unquote unprofessional guys in their locker room. And it appears, based on everything going on in Indy, that is the case with A.D. Mitchell. So the talent, if it's a Madden trade, sign me up immediately. He's an awesome player. But again, we're dealing with real people here with real personalities and all these different things. And these guys in the building have to deal with them every day. I don't know if the Steelers necessarily feel like they want to. So we'll see. But then Kirk for a 6th, I'm all the way in. All the way in. We're going to talk about Christian Kirk here in our next segment, so I'll talk about him then. $2 from Gary Frank says, Jack, how is Tyler Shuck doing this year? Well, he's certainly sitting behind Spencer Rattler waiting for his chance. But he couldn't beat out Spencer Rattler in training camp, so it's clearly not good enough, Gary. $2 from Ryan Briggs. But hey, I was 100% correct in my evaluation with Shadur Sanders, though. And by the way, if I had an NFL game to play right now, I'm taking Tyler Shuck over Shadur Sanders any day of the week. All right, it's not even a discussion for me. Outside of Cam Ward, I think Tyler Shuck from the rookie class this year. No, never mind. Jackson Dart would be. I would say Cam Ward and Jackson Dart would be the guys that look like they're pretty darn good, and then everybody else. There's a big gap between. Yeah, everybody else is a backup at this point. But I rank Shadur Sanders 5th on my quarterback rankings this year. That's one of my better moments as a draft analyst, I would say. Is that it? Ryan Briggs says, would you trade for Adonai Mitchell and how much? I would think about it, but I would really want to feel good with the person. Like, I wasn't in the draft meetings. I wasn't on the draft visit that he took here to Pittsburgh, all right? I don't know how the Steelers feel about him as a person, all right? But if Mike Tomlin likes him and thinks that he would fit here, he's a hell of a talent. He is, okay? So I wanted to draft him in the 2nd round a couple years ago. Like, he is somebody that is extremely talented, great route runner. He could help this team on the football side of things. But there's a reason why he fell in the draft, and there's a reason why he's a healthy scratch in Indianapolis right now. It's because of the personality and the behavior stuff, and the Steelers have actively tried to root that out of their building lately. So I don't know, man. I would maybe offer like 5th round pick. If I really feel good about the person, a 4th round pick. That's about what I would do. I'm not giving up a third for him. That's for damn sure. So probably an early day 3 pick is probably what I would trade for him, Ryan. All right, without further ado here, guys, let's get into our next segment here. We've talked a lot about trade stuff right there, so you guys will probably love this next segment. Keep those super chats coming. We'll keep answering your questions after this next segment. But in the meantime, let's get into our next segment here, the latest Steelers trade buzz surrounding this football team. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the latest Steelers trade rumors surrounding this football team. We are getting closer and closer to the NFL trade deadline, which is going to be on November 4th this year in the National Football League, guys. So the trade rumors are just getting started here on Steelers Talk. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss any of those trade rumor videos that we do on this channel. But now get me down there in on the comment section and kick us off today. Will the Steelers make a trade before the NFL trade deadline this year? And if so, what do you think that trade's going to look like? Give me your predictions for Steelers trades down there in the comments section, and if you guys put enough good suggestions down there, we might even put a video. We might even make a video of your guys' suggestions for Steelers trades this year. All right, so let's start here with A.J. Brown, the superstar wide receiver. I consider him a bona fide top 5 receiver in the National Football League today. CBS's Cody Benjamin suggests that there is a trade package for Pittsburgh that is realistic that could land A.J. Brown with the black and gold this year. All right, and that trade package would look like this. The Pittsburgh Steelers would get A.J. Brown and Azeez Ojulari, the edge rusher from the Eagles, and the Eagles would receive Alex Highsmith, Pat Freiermuth, and a 2026 third-round pick. All right, so very intriguing stuff here. Lots of moving parts here. But here's Cody himself in his article breaking down why he thinks this is a realistic trade option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why on earth would the Steelers deal for Brown when they already spent picks and a big money to land former college teammate DK Metcalf this offseason? Because they're all in on winning with Aaron Rodgers this year, and their 4-1 start suggests they'll remain aggressive in roster building. Freiermuth doesn't have a major role in the Steel City anymore, but he might offer both blocking and pass-catching depth as a potential Dallas Goedert successor. Highsmith, meanwhile, is often nicked up, but a proven edge rusher to help fill the Eagles' blatant need there. Philadelphia might also send one of its own reserve pass rushers like Azeez Ojulari back to Pittsburgh in this scenario. And listen, man, I got to say, this is an interesting idea. And if this was the trade package that Howie Roseman would be willing to take for A.J. Brown, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers would at least need to think about it, all right? And I think the big reason why that would be is really simple, all right? The idea of adding DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, putting these guys back together in an Arthur Smith offense, nonetheless, that gets these guys the ball out in space. I mean, A.J. Brown was a freaking monster in Tennessee under Arthur Smith. And if you can put him in this offense with DK Metcalf, who's currently leading the league in yards after the catch right now, I mean, goodness gracious, this is something that, could be probably the best wide receiver duo in the National Football League with a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers throwing them the ball. All right, so the idea is very, very tantalizing if it is in fact possible. But there's a couple questions here that would be on my mind, and my biggest question would be, would Pittsburgh be able to swing it financially? Because if you trade for A.J. Brown, you're trading for a player that's under contract for multiple seasons and has a lot of money left on his deal, okay? So you'd have to pay for DK Metcalf's contract, which you're already on the hook for, and you'd be paying another top-flight contract in A.J. Brown over the next several seasons. And, it's certainly, a possibility that they could do that because Pittsburgh won't be paying a quarterback anytime soon. All right, and this is kind of a big thing that could make this a possibility is that the Steelers, have Aaron Rodgers under a very team-friendly contract this year, and then if he comes back for another year, I'm guessing he'd be willing to play for even the vet minimum if that's what it would take to bring in A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. And then also, I expect the Steelers to draft a rookie quarterback that will be the successor to Aaron Rodgers in the near future. So it doesn't seem likely that the Steelers will be spending big money on their QB1 for at least like the next 5 to 6 years at this point, and that would make it at least somewhat possible for A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf on 2 mega deal contracts in the Steelers offense to coexist. But something else to keep in mind in the back of your mind here, guys, though, is that although you're unloading Alex Highsmith's contract in this deal, Nick Herbig's contract is going to be coming up here soon. And if you unload Highsmith in this deal, then you're almost certainly going to want to retain Nick Herbig in the years to come. And that's going to be a very lucrative contract for the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys. So, it'd be interesting to see the financials. Obviously, Omar Khan has a whole team of cap guys that would be crunching the numbers to even see if this would even make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers to pull off. But you're unloading the deals of Alex Highsmith and Pat Freiermuth in this deal, along with the fact that you're not paying a quarterback. So in theory, it could possibly happen here where if the Eagles found this trade package appealing, that the Steelers could pull it off from a financial standpoint. But in the end, guys, I don't think Philly would accept this trade offer, all right? I think they would want at least one first-round pick in a trade for A.J. Brown. They might want 2 first-round picks. And as much as they would want another edge rusher here in Alex Highsmith, even Cody Benjamin, the author of this article, acknowledges that Highsmith gets banged up a lot, so that's a risk that the Eagles would be taking on. Also, Pat Freiermuth, I think would be a decent piece to add here, but is Alex Highsmith and Pat Freiermuth enough to offset the multiple higher draft picks that they could get elsewhere in a trade? I honestly don't think so, and I don't think this would be enough for the Pittsburgh Steelers to land A.J. Brown. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. If you are Steelers GM Omar Khan, are you accepting this trade? Type A for accept or D for decline. Personally, guys, I'm not the biggest fan of trading Alex Highsmith, but if it means we get A.J. Brown to pair him up with DK Metcalf for the next several years, that's an idea that would probably make me at least think about it. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I'm telling you about our sponsor, get down there in the comment section and let me know if you would accept or decline this trade to bring A.J. Brown to the Steel City. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day. But on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long. Prize Picks is super simple to play. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and does not return, Prize Picks will not count it as a loss. So for Thursday Night Football this week, guys, I'm going to take the more on DK Metcalf receiving yards, the more on Jaylen Warren rushing yards, and the more on Joe Flacco interceptions. So if you guys want to get your lineup in this week here, download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, so we just talked about A.J. Brown. Let's talk about 2 other wide receiver trade targets that nobody's really talking about, or at least not enough, in my opinion, right now. First one I want to talk about is Houston Texans slot receiver Christian Kirk. All right, and Kirk has dealt with another little injury, a little hamstring issue this year, but he's been back, and he played really well against the Baltimore Ravens a couple weeks ago. And he is, a pretty darn good veteran option as a slot wide receiver that can still get open, can still separate, run blocks a little bit. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's certainly not the smallest guy in the world either. 5'11", 200 pounds. He's a Grizzly veteran that's never really had an opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl in his career. I'm sure he would love a chance to play with Aaron Rodgers and try and win a Super Bowl here in Pittsburgh. He's on the final year of his deal with the Texans. And also, guys, something to keep in mind is that Pittsburgh showed a lot of interest in trading for Christian Kirk when he was still with the Jaguars last year before the trade deadline. He ended up having a season-ending injury, so that trade couldn't come to fruition. But the Steelers have had interest, with Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator, by the way, in Christian Kirk in the very recent past. And, the Houston Texans are a team that does have quite a bit of receiving talent and young receiving talent at that. And, especially if they lose, some of these next few games and maybe they start feeling like, we'll take a draft pick for Christian Kirk. It's certainly possible that they could unload him, in my opinion. You take a look at their receiver room right now. Of course, you got Nico Collins. He's their number 1 alpha. But then they drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll very early in the NFL draft this year. Knoll is their future slot receiver. when push comes to shove here, this is going to be Christian Kirk's only season with the Houston Texans because Higgins and Knoll are the future there. And they also have Tank Dell, who's going to be coming back next year as well. They also like Xavier Hutchinson. They got Braxton Berrios and Justin Watson, some good depth behind those guys. So the Texans can certainly swing a trade for Christian Kirk. And, for an early day 3 pick, round 4, round 5, something like that, would they be willing to come to the table for a deal for Christian Kirk? I mean, I think Kirk's a really good player, really reliable slot wide receiver that can play a little bit on the outside when asked. But the big risk with Kirk is that he does have trouble staying healthy. And not only did he have that hamstring issue earlier this season, but he's had a number of pretty big injuries, and he's had a really tough time staying healthy over the last 3 seasons at this point. So he's getting older. He's getting injured at a higher rate. So maybe even just like a 5th or 6th round pick is probably my preferred price to go out and get a guy like Christian Kirk, but you inject him into this lineup with DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III. I think it's the caliber of receiver they're looking for right now, and I think he can be a contributor to a passing attack here in Pittsburgh that I think could be pretty darn good down the stretch if he can stay healthy. But the second wide receiver target that I want to talk about here is Jawan Jennings from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Jennings was a name that was brought up before the season because, he wanted a new contract from San Francisco and he wanted more money, and he ended up getting something done with San Francisco before the season, but he is just on a 1-year deal, all right? Kind of a similar situation to last year where, it's kind of a short-term kind of deal that he makes with the team. And, the thing that I love about Jennings is, his route running ability. He gets open versus man, versus zone. He's got great hands, and then he's also a great run blocker. He's another guy that's getting up there in age. He's another Grizzly veteran, 28 years old, over 200 pounds, and he might be the best run blocking wide receiver in the National Football League. So if you want to run those 12 personnel looks and you want both of your receivers to be able to run block, and you don't want, we want to take Calvin Austin III in some moments there, Jawan Jennings is exactly the type of guy that can do that kind of stuff. And right now, Jawan is kind of on kind of shaky ground with the San Francisco 49ers. He had a verbal altercation with head coach Kyle Shanahan on the sideline last week. So he's clearly not too happy with the 49er organization, with Kyle Shanahan. He's frustrated with the team right now, even though they are winning football games. They're 4-2 right now, but he's also playing through injuries. I think he told the media last week that he's playing through 5 broken ribs and multiple lower body injuries as well. So maybe he's not the most healthy guy in the world, but you take a look at the San Francisco 49er receiver room, and they got a lot of names in there, right? Brandon Ayuk, who knows if he's even going to be coming back this year, but he's in there, and he's expected to be back at some point this year. Then you got Ricky Pearsall, who's had a really good season. Kendrick Bourne has done some good stuff, especially with Mac Jones at quarterback. Jordan Watkins is a rookie that they drafted this year out of Ole Miss who's really shown out during the training camp in the preseason. They're going to get him back soon. And then they've got a lot of guys that are kind of like wide receiver 5s and 4s, like Demarcus Robinson, MVS, Sky Moore, all these guys. So could the 49ers theoretically, especially if they're expecting to get Ayuk back, unload Jawan Jennings for a decent draft pick while they still can? And honestly, I think that would be something that is somewhat realistic. I won't say Jennings is the most realistic option out there. I just think that, his name isn't being mentioned enough in these discussions. And frankly, he would be Pittsburgh's perfect wide receiver 2. All right, he's used to wide receiver 2 looks. He's not going to be expecting to get number 1 receiver production here in Pittsburgh, but he blocks his ass off. He's got really reliable hands, which can build trust with Rodgers immediately. And he's a good route runner. And he's just a pro. He's a pro's pro. So I think that he would be really the ideal receiver for the Steelers to add as long as he's healthy. And that really is the question, right? How healthy are his ribs? How healthy is his lower body and his ankles and all these different things? And I just don't know the answer to that question. And, if he's just not healthy enough to trade for, then that's not something that you're going to be doing if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously. But if before the trade deadline, he still has about a half a month here to get healthier, if he's in a good spot physically by the time we get to the trade deadline, I wouldn't completely rule out Jawan Jennings as a potential trade target for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So take your pick. Between these 2 receivers, which one would you rather add to the Steelers for like a 5th round pick? Type CK for Christian Kirk or type JJ for Jawan Jennings? I would be happy with either one of these guys, frankly, guys, for a 5th round pick. But for me, I'm going to go with Jawan Jennings. Let me know your pick down there in the comments section. Final trade rumor that we'll talk about today comes from Andrew Filipponi. He tweeted this out last week saying he has a source that's a former NFL GM. Quote, I don't know what's going on with Freiermuth. A team would definitely trade for him like the Commanders or Rams. I think the Steelers could get a 3rd or 4th round pick for him, unquote, should the Steelers trade Pat Freiermuth. Now, as we know, Filipponi's quote-unquote sources and quote-unquote reports can be very shaky. So take whatever he says with a grain of salt here. But, especially this one, though, because I highly question, the validity of just how real this former NFL GM is, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. For me, guys, Pat Freiermuth is not probably worth a 3rd round pick. I think at most you can get a 4th round pick for him, but probably more like a 5th or 6th round pick, okay? Because he doesn't play a high value position, and he doesn't do necessarily anything at an elite level or at a great level for that matter. He does a lot of things really good, all right? He does a lot of things very well. He's got somewhat reliable hands. He's a good route runner, especially versus zone. He can identify those soft spots in the zones. He's a very smart football player in that way. If he's going up against an off-ball linebacker or a DB as a blocker, he can block those guys. But he does have certain limitations. He's not a great blocker that can dig up defensive ends in a 4-3 system. It's one of the reasons why he hasn't been playing all that much here in Pittsburgh this year. He's not a separator versus man coverage. And, there's certain things that he just doesn't do at a super high level. And even the stuff that he does do at a good level, it's not like he's special in those categories. And you take into account he's getting top 10 tight end money, and you take into account the fact that he plays a low-value position. And I just don't see a 3rd round evaluation for a player like this, all right? And then the second thing that makes me question this quote-unquote report is that I don't think the Washington Commanders are looking for another tight end. All right, I think they actually feel very good about their tight end room as it stands here right now. Now, the Commanders, kind of like the Steelers, do run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, but they like all 3 of the guys that they have. They got Zach Ertz, who is kind of their receiving kind of Pat Freiermuth type of guy right now. Like maybe they would trade for Pat Freiermuth when Zach Ertz retires at the end of the year. That would make sense to me. But right now, that doesn't make a lot of sense unless Ertz gets injured. Very similar type of players. And then you got John Bates, who's a great blocking tight end. He's not going anywhere soon. Just signed a new 3-year extension, by the way. And then Ben Sinnott is a 2nd-round rookie that they drafted last year, and he's the future at the position there. So I just don't see where, this is now the 2nd time where Filipponi has said that this former GM says the Commanders are all in on getting Pat Freiermuth, and they would have traded Terry McLaurin to the Steelers in exchange for him. That was the previous report, and I just don't see it. All right, I think they like their tight end room, and I just really question the validity of this report because of that. But listen, man, I do think that the Steelers could trade Pat Freiermuth. Now, I don't think they're going to trade him just straight up for a draft pick. I think if they trade Muth, it'll most likely be in a package to get a wide receiver. Like if they want to get a bigger name, like maybe Chris Olave, and the Saints would want Pat Freiermuth as kind of like a building block with multiple years left on his deal, maybe that would be something that the Steelers would be able to throw into a trade if it means that they don't have to give up as high of a draft pick, for example. So, I do think a Pat Freiermuth trade is possible here in Pittsburgh. Just because, I think the Steelers are looking for that 3rd piece to add to this receiver room before the deadline. And frankly, Muth's role in this offense is shrinking by the week. I think he's a good player, and I think that, he's certainly a starting caliber player in the National Football League, but maybe he isn't the best fit for the Steelers offense anymore, and because of that, he might be a trade piece that the Steelers use to get a receiver that can help this team win ball games down the stretch. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Are you getting or are you open to trading Pat Freiermuth if it means that the Steelers can trade for a wide receiver? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. For me, I personally am open to the idea. I'm not giving him away for nothing. All right, I want to make that abundantly clear. I think Muth is a good player, but I am open to the idea of trading him if it means the Steelers can get another good receiver. All right, that'll be it for today's show, guys. I appreciate all of your support. The trade rumors are just starting here on Steelers Talk. We got multiple weeks left before the NFL trade deadline, and of course, we'll have breaking news coverage when and if the con artist strikes before the deadline hits. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, so we got more super chats to get to here.
More trade rumors.
More trade rumors. Well, I mean, hey, man, it's that time of year.
I mean, yeah.
Uriah Brobe says Ayuk unfollowed 49ers and isn't practicing anymore. I mean, he hasn't been practicing
Because of his injury.
Because of his injury. But he would attend practices during training camp and all this stuff. He hasn't been at the facility in San Francisco for many weeks. So obviously there's been a falling out between Ayuk and the 49er organization. But listen, man, there's a lot of variables that go into this kind of equation as to whether or not Ayuk is an eligible player to be traded before the deadline, because we have no idea what his health status is right now. There's reports out there that Ayuk might not be able to play for the rest of this season because that knee injury was so horrific. And it's like, also, he's been somebody that's been very dramatic in the public eye, not just this year, but also, of course, last year with the whole saga that unfolded with him, being linked to the Steelers and all this stuff, and then he ends up staying in San Francisco. I'm just happy that the 49ers got stuck with this, man, because I remember, 49ers fans rubbing it in our faces that we didn't get him and all this different stuff. And I remember Chase Sr. is one of my best friends here at Chat Sports. He was smoking his cigar, roasting Steelers fans when they locked up Ayuk. And, it's just after all that shit that they talked, to have to deal with Ayuk's ass here, it's just good to see, man. Now, I did see a report, or another quote-unquote report, from a kind of aggregate kind of 49ers account today saying that he's heard that the Steelers are still interested in Ayuk. I don't see how that person would have any connection to Ayuk or the Steelers or the 49ers to have that information, but I
love this season.
It just doesn't make sense, right? Because he's coming off that major injury. We haven't seen him since that injury. He's been a problem, behavior-wise, which we talked about with A.D. Mitchell. Maybe they wouldn't want A.D. Mitchell because they just got rid of Deontay and they just got rid of George, who were kind of the same way. So, do they really want to bring in somebody else on a big contract, by the way, and do all that? Now, the thing that I will say, if Ayuk is healthy, which is a big if,
and we don't even know that.
But if he's healthy and he's ready to go, the next 2 years of his contract, if the Steelers were to trade for him, are extremely affordable. It's like vet minimum money the next 2 years, because pretty much the 49ers guaranteed all of the money for the next 2 years on a roster bonus that kicked in this offseason. So the Steelers, if you get them, you're paying them like $1.2 million a season for the next 2 years, so this year, next year. Then the money does increase quite a bit on the cap. So you would have 2 years to decide, all right, do we want to keep him? Or do we want to cut him? Because none of the money past these next 2 years is guaranteed to Ayuk. So you would essentially have 2 free years of Brandon Ayuk if you traded for him, and then you would have the option to make a decision as to whether or not he's worth the money that's left on his deal moving forward. So that kind of intrigues me, but the risk is just too much in my opinion, man. The risk is just too much, dude. I think the Ayuk ship has probably sailed. For all I know, we'll probably end up doing an Ayuk video on this channel within the next few weeks, but I really, unless I get really good word that Ayuk is healthy and good to go, I just don't know if I'm ever going to get to a point where I feel good about trading for him, even for like a 6th or a 7th round pick.
Wow.
I mean, that would have to be the price tag to me. If I'm going to be taking on the amount of risk it would take to bring in Ayuk, I'm not going to be giving up a high-end draft asset to get him. The only way I'd be willing to get him at this point is if I'm trading like a 6th or a 7th round pick and the 49ers are just trying to get him out of the building and just trying to get something for him. It's the only way I'm interested in Ayuk. $2 from Mark Russ, who says, DK, good vet to teach AD. We didn't have that before. Yeah, but here's my issue with that, Mark. You could have made the same argument for keeping George Pickens at the time, right? You could have said, DK, good mentor, can get George on the straight and narrow, all this stuff. But what did the Steelers do? They traded him away for a 3rd-round pick, one of the most talented receivers in the game. And, I can guarantee you they didn't trade him because they thought he was a bad football player, right? No. That's not why they traded George Pickens. So
they traded him to get that vibe out of the locker room.
Yeah, they traded George Pickens because they were tired of dealing with George Pickens, the person, not the football player.
The crash-out artist himself.
I guess, whatever you want to call it, however you want to spin it there, Ponzi. But listen, man, I'm not opposed to the idea of A.D. Mitchell. If Mike Tomlin feels like, he's maybe a little quote-unquote misunderstood and thinks that he can rein him in, he's a good player. He is. He's a good player. If the price and like if you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like if you're getting them for like a 5th round pick or something, like that's a good risk to take. Like what's the chances of a 5th round pick having the potential that A.D. Mitchell has?
And like I was saying, you look at that play where he made against the Colts that ultimately put him in the doghouse.
Incredible play.
He made a great catch, stayed in bounds, and just did the most dumb thing possible at the end. And you can fix that. But maybe the character is a little bit too much of a concern. So I don't know. I feel like the Steelers are just trying to pivot away from this character concern mantra they've had at the wide receiver position.
$2 from Ray Zillis as we run the North. We putting belt to ass.
Damn.
So far we are. We gotta keep the focus though, Ray Zill. We gotta take care of business. $2 from Shannon says Herbig plus Muth plus 2nd round equals AJ.
Not getting Herbig away.
Yeah, I'm not giving away Herbig, dude. I'm not. I'm not giving away Herbig. He's arguably a top 10 pass rusher in the entire NFL right now, which is crazy to say, man, but it's true. He's just been a beast. Now, like I said, the one that we talked about in the cut, right? Highsmith, Muth in a 3rd, that intrigues the hell out of me. Because I do think a 3rd round pick is probably the most in terms of draft capital the Steelers would be willing to give up. Because I think they want to keep their 1st and 2nd round pick, and then they want to keep at least one of their 3rd round picks. They want to have those. They want to have those 3 picks available to them next spring in case they need to use those picks to move up for a quarterback they love. So I think that the most they'd be willing to give up for a receiver in a trade in terms of draft capital is 1 3rd round pick.
Because they have multiple.
Because they have multiple, and they've got multiple 4ths, and they've got multiple 5ths, and I believe multiple 6ths, if I'm not mistaken. They've got like 12 picks, so they got a lot of picks, but they've only got 4 in the first 3 rounds. So they want to keep those unless they're getting a really good player. So,
not Madden.
What would you do, Ponzi? Would you do Highsmith, Muth, and a 3rd? I would think about
AJ?
it. Listen, man, I'm about as anti-trade Highsmith as you're gonna find, but the idea of combining DK Metcalf with AJ Brown with Aaron Rodgers throwing them the football is almost too good to pass up.
I feel like though, in terms of that trade value, it's just like, obviously if you're the Steelers side, the Eagles are offering that, then yes. But at the same time, we did mention it, Highsmith does bring a role into this defense. It's not like he's not seeing the field. It's not like Herbig should be playing over him. It's rotation. They're getting these guys in and out there, the NASCAR packages, and this is legitimately one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Do you want to sacrifice that for A.J. Brown? I don't know. I have a hard time. I feel like defense has always been my favorite, terms of position groups here, of just making sure your defense is good. And I feel like, I think that the Steelers need Alex Highsmith more than they need A.J. Brown. Just in terms of what they do on their
A.J. Brown is a hell of a good player, though, man.
He would be. But I just feel like,
A.J. Brown, to me, is a top 5 receiver in the game.
And I agree with that. However...
And he's a yak monster. And you put him and DK Metcalf in the same offense, oh, my Lord. That's better than... I think that's better than Chase and Higgins. I do.
I mean, I feel like, with having him there, though, it's just in terms of personnel, I'm just having a hard time finding the targets, if that makes sense.
Well,
you would have to retool the offense.
I think the argument would be if you get A.J. Brown, they will find the targets for these for both of these guys. They won't be as much into the running game as much. They'll be much more of a passing game if they go out and get A.J. Brown. I want to be abundantly clear while we're having this discussion, by the way. They're probably not going to trade for A.J. Brown. There's a less than 1% chance the Steelers get A.J. Brown. I'm going to say that right here and right now. We're just talking about the hypothetical situation where the trade offer that CBS's Cody Benjamin is an actual possibility. Would we take it? I think I would at least think about it, especially because, Ponzi, you're getting a rotational edge rusher in the deal. So you have your 2 starters in Nick Herbig and TJ Watt, and then you got Azeez Ojulari, who can be your rotational 3rd guy.
Yeah.
And then if somebody gets injured, you can have Jack Sawyer as the early down guy to stop the run, and then Ojulari can be your designated pass rusher. So even if there's an injury, you're still set if you can get Ojulari back in the deal. So I think I would probably take it, especially because you're eventually going to have to trade Highsmith.
I feel like you are too.
Like it might not be till 2 more off seasons down the road, but I think eventually you're going to have to trade Highsmith.
And I feel like, maybe this is just my whole thinking of it, I'd rather do this trade in the off season rather than with this season. I feel like the best chance to win instead of retooling the offense mid-season is to just wait till the off season. Maybe A-Rod comes back another year, but at the same time, you are trying to make a push.
But that's the thing. Aaron Rodgers might not come back. This might be
problem.
Our one shot.
That's the whole problem. Is that
And I'll also throw this out there, Ponzi. Okay, you're probably getting this year and the next year of Alex Highsmith. All right, at most. All right.
Yeah.
So you got 2 more years of Alex Highsmith before you probably got to trade him away because at this point Nick Herbig's playing too well, I think, to not pay him and keep him long term. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, how many years does A.J. Brown have left on his deal? I think he's got 3 or 4 years left on his deal, and that's a long-term investment. If you get him on your roster, you got DK locked up for the next half decade, and you've got A.J. Brown locked up for, I think, the next 4 years, including this year.
He has a deal till 2029.
So that's a long time.
So that's, 4 years?
So that's 4 years. So we're in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 20. That's 5 years. So you'd have A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf for a full half decade if you made that trade. And you're only giving up 1 draft pick, and it's a 3rd rounder?
I mean, I feel like
I'm taking that deal, I think, man. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think the Eagles would even think about trading him for that. But,
I think the problem that a lot of people have with that deal, or the Eagles would have with that deal, is that they don't really need Freiermuth. And I think, Dallas Goedert is on his last year, but, I mean, if you're thinking about it, mid-season, what do we really need if A.J. Brown is wanting to get out right now? Pass rusher, Alex Highsmith. Maybe another pass catcher that's going to separate. So I think ultimately, maybe they even asked for Calvin Austin.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're wasting our breath here. I'm on record saying I don't think the Steelers will trade for another.
I don't think the Eagles will.
I don't think the Eagles will, but I also don't think the Steelers are really all. I don't think they're going to be let's trade Alex Highsmith to get a receiver. I don't think that's the mentality that they're having right now. I think their mentality is we like DK and we like Calvin, but we don't really trust anybody else outside of those 2. We would like to add a 3rd guy that's a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 caliber of guy that we can trust, that we can put in here, and can be a good piece in the rotation. I don't think they're looking to get another number 1 caliber guy like A.J. Brown. $2 from Gary Frank says, what's the odds Aaron Rodgers signs on for another year? I think it's higher than maybe some people will think.
Yeah.
Now, there's certain situations where I think he'll just be done. Severe injury, Super Bowl victory, or miss the playoffs. I think those are the 3 ways that he's going to be I'm done with football. But, if they make the playoffs and they don't win the Super Bowl, and he's relatively healthy heading into the offseason, I think he comes back.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because, he's becoming very close with Cam Hayward. Cam Hayward's got 2 years left before he retires. So, we get into next offseason, and Cam is going up to A-Rod and said, hey, man, we just won however many games that the Steelers won, 10, 11, 12 games, whatever it ends up being, and we came really close. Let's run it back 1 more year here, man, and we can both run out into the sunset together at the end of this next season. Yeah. And listen, man, Rodgers loves it in Pittsburgh. He loves playing for Mike Tomlin. He loves playing with DK. The guy still loves football, man. You watch him play, he just plays the game with so much joy and, with so much passion. He still loves football with a burning fire in his heart. So, as long as, he's not severely injured, as long as the team doesn't stink, and as long as the team doesn't win the Super Bowl, I think there's a pretty good chance that he comes back. And then, hell, maybe if they do win the Super Bowl, he's hell, let's run it back again.
Yeah,
who knows? So, I actually think the odds are pretty good. Aaron Rodgers comes back for another year. especially if he keeps playing well like he is right now. $2 from Gary again says PK Western says Devontae, LOL.
They're not going to change.
Rams
Devontae.
aren't trading Devontae. Yeah,
he's very crucial in their offense.
That is an LOL. You were 100% right about that, Gary. If you wanted Devontae, you should have got him in the offseason, right?
For a free agency deal.
Exactly. So, and by the way, the fact that the Steelers executed the DK Metcalf deal right after Devontae Adams announced his signing with the Rams tells me that Devontae was probably their number one target, but he ended up going to the Rams instead.
Which is a good fit for him.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Steelers probably thought, hey, he might want to come play with Aaron Rodgers, but clearly Devontae had other plans. $5 from Gary again says, Jack, do we start Mason next year and draft a quarterback? Do we start a QB and start a rookie, or draft a QB and start a rookie? Do we get another veteran and draft a QB? There's a lot of different options there, man. I think the most likely option, Gary, is Rodgers comes back, they draft a quarterback early, and they develop that young quarterback. And I know what people are going to say, just develop Will Howard for another year or whatever, but listen, man, I think Will Howard's ceiling is probably like a more athletic Derek Carr. Listen, man, I love Will. I think he's an awesome kid, and he's a hard worker. He's a good person. I think he's intelligent, but Derek Carr was intelligent. Derek Carr had some pretty nice, arm talent. He had a good arm. He could do some good stuff with the football, but he was severely limited, and I just don't see the pocket presence. I don't see the high level, advanced processing in the anticipation on his film from Ohio State last year. And, he was a national champion, and that's all great, but he was also on the best roster in college football by a wide margin. So, we've seen a lot of national champion quarterbacks not pan out as quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm not even saying that I'm completely out on Will Howard or I'm against giving him a chance, but if you pass on a first-round quarterback to play Will Howard, a sixth-round pick, you better be fucking sure Will Howard is the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like,
You know what I'm saying?
There's been cases where teams draft a quarterback in the second round, like Kyle Trask, where the Bucs drafted him to be the heir to Tom Brady, and then they brought in Baker Mayfield, and Mayfield beat him out. So, if second rounders are not getting a chance to start, what do we think is Will Howard's going to get a chance to start just because he's been here?
Exactly.
It doesn't mean anything.
And listen, man, the Steelers. Why do you think the Steelers are accruing all these draft picks? It's because they
need a QB.
They want as much ammo as possible to go get a quarterback that they love. All right, and I think it is the perfect situation, Ponzi, to have Rodgers come back for one more season. And we what are we seeing from young quarterbacks in their first year starting? They stink. J.J. McCarthy, Cam Ward, all these different guys. All right, most of them are struggling. If they come in as rookies and they play right away, they don't play particularly well. The Steelers have a win now roster going into next year. So unless they completely fire Tomlin, rebuild, all that different stuff, it doesn't really make sense to start a rookie next year, in my opinion. So I would say either Rodgers comes back to mentor that rookie so that he can take over in year 2 when Rodgers retires, or if Rodgers retires, if you still want to try and win now, you could maybe try and trade for Matthew Stafford if he's available, or if somebody else becomes available, you could go out and try and make a trade for another veteran and then still draft a quarterback and have that be the bridge situation. But obviously, we'll have to figure this situation out when we get to next offseason. But, Gary, my focus is on right now. Steelers are 4-1. They're playing good football. I'm excited for this season. $2 from Dominic says, time for Muth to go. Big contract, not used enough. I can't disagree with you, Dominic. From a usage standpoint, he's not worth the money. So, there's two solutions here. Number one, find a way to make him, get him the ball and make him worth the money that we're paying him, or B, use him as a trade piece to get a player that can help you win more than he's helping us win right now. I love Muth as a guy, love him as a teammate, great locker room guy, never complains. He's a Steeler, man. He's a great guy to have on this team. But at the end of the day, man, you're trying to win a Super Bowl this year, and he's getting 20 snaps a game. He's getting paid top 10 money to do so. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. $2 from Nicole says, AJ reminds me too much of AB. I don't
think so.
Listen, man, AJ's a little bit of a diva, but I don't know if he's like going to Dubai and like skinny dipping with 50-year-old ladies in Dubai, like kind of crazy.
I don't think, a lot of people, I've heard of this on Twitter a little bit where they're like, oh, he forced his way out of Tennessee. He's going to force his way out of Philadelphia. He did not force his way out of Tennessee. John Robinson traded him because he didn't want to pay him.
It was a shocking draft night trade when they traded him.
So, like,
people
didn't
forget
force his way out anyway.
Yeah, man. So, I like I said, guys, I don't really see AJ being a realistic option anyway. $2 from Yinzer says Waddle for a third/second. Only option that's real. The only option that's realistic?
That's crazy.
I think this is one of the options that is one of the least realistic.
Miami's not doing that.
With all due respect, Jake, like, what, Waddle's 26? Waddle's 26, so he's young. He's under contract for 3 more seasons after this year. Like, even if the Miami Dolphins are blowing it up and rebuilding, Jalen Waddle
is going to be a part of that.
Is going to be a part of that rebuild. So I don't see that as a realistic option at all, personally, Jake. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong, man.
He's 26.
Yeah.
And he's under contract until 2028.
So listen, man, if the Steelers get Jalen Waddle, that's unbelievable. All right, you're getting a 26-year-old who's under contract for this season plus 3 years after this year.
And he's been balling out since Tyreek Hill.
And if you get him for a third-round pick, that is an absolute steal. But I'm telling you, man,
it's not going to happen.
It's probably not going to happen. The Dolphins are going to keep him. Like, I think if there was a receiver they were going to trade, it was going to be Tyreek Hill, and his knee exploded. So that's not going to happen, obviously. So don't think that's going to happen personally. But I'd love to be wrong, Yinzer Jake. Joshua Bailey, my man, says Carson Beck and sit under Rodgers for a year. See, I think Carson's the type of guy that, like,
to start now.
Yeah, he's almost like a start now kind of guy.
Him and Ty Simpson, I feel.
Yeah, I would say Carson Beck and Ty Simpson probably look like the most pro-ready guys in college football right now.
You could argue Mendoza.
Yeah, but Mendoza runs such a RPO-heavy offense in Indiana. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Mendoza is a good first-round caliber prospect. But like, if I had to trust 2 quarterbacks in college football right now to run an actual NFL progression-style offense and handle it, I would say Ty Simpson, who already runs that style of offense at Alabama, and Carson Beck, who also runs a very similar spread-style offense at Miami. So, honestly, if Rodgers comes back, Josh, if I can call you Josh, I would want to get somebody that has a lot of talent and can be a legitimate superstar if they develop, and give them a year to develop behind Rodgers. Someone like a Lenora Sellers if he's available.
I just don't think Sellers is going to get out of
John Mateer.
That's a good name.
Sam Levitt. Somebody with a lot of talent that maybe needs a little bit of molding. Dante Moore.
Drew Aller.
Don't even get me started on Drew Aller, Ponzi. $2. Do we have any more? Shannon says, big game Thursday. Great opportunity to pull away. 100% Shannon will be live 7 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you tune in for Thursday Night Football. Gary with a 5 says, what can we get for Arthur Smith? I'll take a 6-pack of Corona and a dozen donuts. Arthur Smith has been awesome as the play caller of the Steelers this year. What are we talking about, Gary? Arthur Smith is one of the main reasons why the offense is as good as it is. He's the one that's implemented the jumbo personnel packages.
The fact that a 6-pack of Corona and a dozen donuts gets it done for Gary.
I mean, like, listen, man, I respect your opinion, Gary, but I mean, I think Arthur Smith's doing a hell of a job right now. He doesn't run a flashy offense. I think this is a distinction that people get wrong. Because the Steelers aren't super duper creative like a Ben Johnson or a Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, people just assume that it's a quote unquote prehistoric offense and they don't do anything right or good. Well, that's just not the case. I mean, Arthur Smith might run less stuff, but like, he marries his concepts extremely well. He's developed a good run game here in Pittsburgh, the best run game we've had in a while, I would say. Offense is moving the ball effectively. We're scoring in the red zone. I mean, this offense has been effective under Arthur Smith, so I don't know, man.
They're 4-1.
I think he's doing pretty good.
They're at the top of the AFC right now.
$5 from Dominic says, don't think we trade up far in the first for QB. Only trades will be moving up into the second. Big fan of this year's cornerbacks, Jacoby Lane and Oregon's guards. Yeah, we'll see what the quarterback class looks like this year, Dominic. And like,
there's a lot
somebody
of
that I
guys.
could see the Steelers trading up for is Lenora Sellers. If he's not going in the top 10, which, by the way, I think a guy as talented as Sellers would probably go top 10, but like if he escapes the top 10, I know Mike Tomlin would want to go up and trade for him,
Yeah, he's
especially
exactly Tomlin's type.
especially if Rodgers is still on the team.
Now there was some floating of Anthony Richardson earlier this season.
Yeah, but Mike Tomlin literally roasted him in a press conference.
Yeah, so like
earlier this year.
I feel like within that speculation, there's already a feeling that Tomlin wants his type of quarterback as the next quarterback at the Steelers.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, Dominic. Like I said, it's really early. $2 from Elevate, says Garrett Wilson. They just signed him to a new massive extension. He's frustrated with the coaching staff. Obviously, anybody would be, but like it just doesn't make sense for New York to trade him away. So unless he like says, I'm never playing football again unless I'm on a different team other than the New York Jets, I don't think the Jets trade him. $5 from William Yuri says, Jack, I'll be at the game Thursday. What are the odds I have similar receiving stats as Roman Wilson?
That's wild. That's wild.
That's a good comment then, William. I hope not. I hope he plays a great game, and I hope he gets more reps, and I hope all those different things, but
one catch for 4 yards.
The chances are pretty good, honestly. Like he only had one target last week. He only had 8 plays where he was on the field for a passing play. So I hope that's not the case, William. But the odds are higher than I'd like to admit. $2 from Gary says, but will he hold up when the teams get tougher? I think so.
Rodgers?
I hope so. No, I think he's talking about Arthur Smith's offense.
Gotcha.
And, there's this narrative that the Steelers' offense, quote-unquote, isn't sustainable.
I feel like, a lot of Steelers fans are like, oh, they've only played bad teams. Vikings are a decent team. They have a good defense. Brian Flores is probably one of the best defensive coordinators in the league.
Yeah, this is what I'll say, man. Like
Gary,
are
good. The Patriots are good.
Like, here's what I'll say, Gary, okay? You say when teams get tougher. Minnesota was considered a top 3 defense in football before we played them, and we killed them at the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
The Cleveland Browns came into last week as the number 1 rushing defense and considered unanimously across the league as a top 5 defense in the game. What did we do? We played really well. All right, did we put up 30-plus points on them? No, but like what teams that are going to be in the AFC playoff picture have as good or better defenses than Cleveland and Minnesota? Denver, yeah, maybe Houston, Kansas City if they get Chris Jones going, maybe. But like Brian Flores and that Vikings defense is known as like at least like some people consider them top 5, some people consider them top 10, but a good defense, right? Then you got the Browns, who are unanimous. I was told the Steelers were going to lose to the Browns because the defense is so good. How'd that work out, right? This team was moving the football against them.
Rodgers was going to get crushed. Garrett was going to put him in his graveyard.
They had 100 yards rushing against the best rushing defense in football. All right, so frankly, Gary, spare me the when teams get tougher, because these defenses that they've played the last 2 weeks have been pretty tough, and they've looked pretty damn good. So
outside the Jets win.
Well, I'm talking about the last 2 games.
Well, no, I was saying outside
since they've gone to the jumbo personnel packages,
exactly.
Everything has changed. They have beaten up on 2 top 10 defenses in the league. And if they can do that, they can certainly beat up on the Bills defense, which looks terrible right now. They can beat up on the Baltimore defense, which has been really, really bad, giving up over 30 points a game. Like, they can beat up on some of these teams. I'm telling you, man, I think that this offense has figured something out. Now, are they perfect? No. They're not throwing the ball down the field. They don't have, necessarily the greatest weapons against man coverage in the world. They're not the best pass protecting unit in the league. They have their weaknesses, but they understand those weaknesses, which is something that's very valuable. A lot of teams don't understand what they don't do well, and they keep doing those things, and they keep failing. The Steelers don't do that. They learn from their mistakes. They learn from their failures, and they find out what their strengths are, and they lean into those, and they avoid the things that they're not good at. All right, so I'm pretty optimistic about what the Steelers' offense looks like right now. $2 from Gary Frank says Steelers are the king of one-score wins. Yeah, man, they are.
I mean, The whole thing
but that's not. But that shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. I don't know if Gary is saying that's a bad thing, but like Mike Tomlin, out of every coach, all right, this is an incredible stat, by the way. Out of every NFL head coach in NFL history with at least 100 games as a head coach. So we're talking about Hall of Famers here. If you're getting over 100 games coached, you're getting into Hall of Fame territory, all right? Out of coaches with at least 100 games coached as a head coach in the NFL, Mike Tomlin has the highest win percentage in one-score games. It's over 60%, all right?
That's crazy.
More than Andy Reid, more than Bill Belichick, more than Chuck Noll, more than everybody that has had over 100 games coached in this league. So that is something that is a skill. That is something that Mike Tomlin brings to the table. And I get it. Sometimes that leads to playing down to your opponent. But hey, man, in the NFL, a win is a win, right? Now, obviously, Tomlin needs to start winning in the postseason. But like winning one-score games is life in the NFL, man. Like outside of the teams that are at the truly top of the top with incredible quarterback play, you have to win these one-score games to be successful in this league. The teams that aren't successful are the teams that lose in one-score games. Would you rather the Steelers lose in one-score games, Gary? I'd rather have them win those games, right? So the fact that the Steelers are so consistent in these one-score close game affairs, it's a good thing. And it's something that Steelers fans should be very appreciative of because not every team and fan base gets to celebrate wins on 60% of their close games.
Would you rather have, I don't know how many people watched the Commanders game yesterday, but would you rather be the Commanders in that situation where they fumbled the ball away and gave the ball away multiple times?
Exactly.
Or would you rather be the team that won on the last second?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'd rather win. I'm about winning.
Well, that's fair enough. All right. Was that it?
That was it.
All right. So that's going to be it for our live show. Lots of questions today, guys. Thank you so much. Still got over 380 people watching today. You guys are the absolute best. Over 200 likes on the stream today as well. So really successful live show today, guys. We'll be live again on Thursday for Thursday night football. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't miss it, guys. We're going to be live at 7 p.m. Eastern time 2 nights from now. So until then, guys, we'll see you then. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.